"You're not alone anymore," Cowboy whispered when he found a wounded native woman in the forest. Snow whispered against the pines as Elias Boone guided his mare through the narrowing trail, her hooves muffled beneath the thickening frost. The forest lay heavy in silence, a silence so pure it felt almost sacred, though to Elias it was less blessing and more burden. He had learned to live inside such quiet, his only companion the hollow echo of a past that refused to release him. The cold wind stung his face, but it was not the wind that made his eyes burn. It was memory. A family lost to fire, a home reduced to ash, a man reduced to drifting. The weight of survival pressed on him like an old saddle, worn and cracked yet impossible to set down. He tightened the reins without knowing why. His mare Juniper tossed her head uneasy. Somewhere ahead, beneath the murmur of snow, a sound broke through, the faintest cry, so fragile he might have imagined it. Elias froze, breath caught in his chest. For a moment he considered turning away, telling himself it was nothing but the forest playing tricks. But the sound came again, frayed, fading, not a beast's cry but a human one. A call meant for no one, yet somehow it found him. Curiosity prickled against his better judgment. The world had taught him not to meddle in lives that weren't his own. But still he swung down from his horse, boots crunching into the drifts. Each step sank deeper as he followed the wounded sound through the trees, branches clawing against his coat like hands urging him back. His breath coiled white before him, leading him forward into the hush where the forest seemed to hold itself still. At last he saw her. She lay half buried beside a fallen pine, a dark splash of blood marking the snow beneath her leg. Her skin, copper in the dim light, was pale with pain, her braids tangled against her face. She looked like a figure carved from the forest itself, cast down and abandoned. An arrow had snapped against her thigh, its shaft broken, its wound raw and angry. Her hands, small and trembling, pressed against the earth as though clinging to it might keep her from slipping away altogether. Elias stopped short. His chest ached with a sudden, unfamiliar pull, but his mind snarled with warning. She was native, Ahiana, though he did not yet know her name, and the rift between her people and his was carved deep. His father had told him to stay clear, that no good could come from crossing paths. Yet here she was, bleeding into the snow, her breath shallow as a bird's. He could have turned back. He almost did. But shame gripped him, heavy and hot, because the truth was simple. He had left others before when saving them would have meant facing his own fear. Not this time. He knelt slowly, his shadow stretching over her like a cloak. His voice, rough from disuse, came as barely more than a murmur. "You're not alone anymore." Her eyelids fluttered, dark eyes meeting his with sudden sharpness. Fear flickered there, a wild distrust, but beneath it was something else, something like the faint recognition of mercy. She did not move as he reached for her leg, though her breath quickened. Elias worked clumsily, hands shaking as he snapped a strip from his scarf and bound the wound, trying to stem the flow. He whispered small, half-remembered stories under his breath, his mother's old habit when she used to soothe his scrapes. The words were nonsense now, fragments, but he hoped their softness mattered more than their meaning. The snow thickened around them, forcing the world smaller and smaller until only the two of them remained. Elias guided her gently beneath the fallen pine, shelter from the storm that gathered above. She let him, though her gaze stayed wary, sharp as a blade hidden behind tired eyes. They sat together in the cramped hollow, silence swelling between them, filled only by the sound of their breathing. Elias had not shared space with another soul in so long it felt almost unbearable, as though her presence might split him open. When at last he spoke, his voice wavered. "I've wandered a long time. Always figured I was meant to ride alone. But hearing you out there," he stopped himself, shame knotting his throat. Confessions came harder than any bullet. Ahiana turned her head, studying him with the stillness of someone who had learned to guard every word. Then, softly she gave hers. "I was cast out." The word struck like a blunt edge. She explained in fragments. Her brother had died in a hunting accident, and the whispers of her village turned against her. Misfortune, they said, followed her like a shadow. They left her no place, no name worth carrying. The wound in her leg was not only flesh but spirit, a mark of exile that bled deeper than any arrow. Elias listened, every word sinking into him like stones. His shame rose again, different this time. Shame at a world that turned its wounded away, shame that her story mirrored too closely the shape of his own. For he too was a man who had been left behind, though by fire rather than people. Snow pressed down harder, wrapping them in its muffled silence. Between them, something shifted, small, invisible, yet undeniable. It was not trust, not yet. But it was a crack in the walls they had built, a spark lit in the frozen dark. By morning the storm had not eased. Elias insisted they move, fearing that to stay meant death. Ahiana resisted, her pride sharp, but at last she let him help her rise. Each step was agony for her, but Elias bore more of her weight than she would allow him to admit. The forest stretched endless before them, shadows stirring along the edge of vision. Then the wolves came. They appeared silent as breath, shapes weaving through the snow-laden trees, their eyes gleaming faintly. Elias steadied his rifle, heart pounding, not from the wolves themselves but from the fear that he might fail her. His finger curled around the trigger, but the pack held its distance, circling, watching. For long moments, man and beast weighed one another in the balance. Finally the wolves melted back into the fog, leaving nothing but paw prints pressed into silence. Ahiana's gaze lingered on Elias, something unreadable flickering there. It was not thanks, not exactly. But it was recognition, of the way he had stood between her and danger without hesitation. The silence that followed carried a weight neither of them spoke aloud. By dusk they stumbled upon an abandoned trapper's cabin, weather-beaten but standing. Elias guided her inside, setting her gently by the hearth. He fumbled with flint and kindling until flame bloomed, painting warmth across the cold hollow of the room. For the first time they were not merely surviving but sheltered. Yet the fire stirred not only heat but fear. Ahiana broke the quiet with words sharp as glass. "You'll leave me here." As all the rest did. Elias froze. Her voice shook not with anger but with dread, and he felt it cut into him, because it mirrored his own terror, the terror of caring only to lose again. He swallowed, raw, trembling. "I don't know how to promise much," he admitted. "But I can promise this, I won't ride off. Not this time." The air between them seemed to fracture. Then, with a grace so small it might have been missed, Ahiana reached out and laid her hand over his. Her touch was warm despite the cold, and it carried the weight of something larger than words. Elias's throat tightened as he whispered, steadier this time, "You're not alone anymore." Outside, the storm broke, wind loosening its grip, as if echoing the release that trembled through them both. In the cabin's dim light, silence bound them more deeply than speech ever could. They were two souls who had been outcast, who had wandered believing exile was their only name. Yet here, in this fragile moment, they discovered something else, that broken paths sometimes lead to the very place they were meant to rest. And though neither dared speak it, both felt the truth settle into their bones. The journey ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, neither would walk it alone. If this tale stirred something quiet within you, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, so you'll never walk alone on the next journey either.